visionary, an entrepreneur, a business owner. You want to make money from your passion and create the freedom that you've dreamed of. But it's slow. The income is slow, the impact is slow, and the freedom is slow. And here's the kicker. You've actually never been busier. You're working longer than ever, burning through daylight, and your family have forgotten who you are. You're tired and frustrated and you can't even sleep well at night. The business just feels so heavy, and all you ever wanted to do was just make the money you want to make doing the things that you want to do. And that's where I come in. Hi, if we haven't met yet, my name is Dr. Storme, and I'm the host of the Business Acceleration Podcast, where we shift your business from heavy to light, time poor to time abundant, and from income lack to income growth. We're going to achieve it together with my 20 years experience as a psychologist, helping people just like you to break through their barriers. And we're going to throw in a little of the woo as well. So thank you so much for pushing play today. Let's begin. Good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday. If we haven't met yet, g'day, my name is Dr. Storme, and I have to admit I'm a little bit tired this morning because I sat up really late last night binge watching The Young Pope with Jude Law, and then I started getting stuck into the following season, which is The New Pope with John Malkovich. And oh my gosh, if you haven't seen it yet, go and check it out. You can just Google The Young Pope with Jude Law and I'm sure it will come up. I think there's even a Facebook group for it. In fact, there is. I have to admit, I went and joined it yesterday. But, oh, wow, it's just so opulent to look at. But I'm really loving the transactions that happen between some of the key players and looking at some of the emotional content and looking at the thinking behind what they're saying, who they're saying it to. It's magic. And in the second season, there's just some beautiful moments between two of the characters, John Malkovich and Sophia. And anyway, if you haven't seen it, go and check it out. No, I don't have any. I'm not getting paid to say this. I'm just sharing with you why I'm a bit tired this morning. But let me cut to the chase, because I know you're not here to listen about the new Pope or the young Pope. You want to know more about running your business from a place of alignment. I get it. Me too. Okay, so speaking of running businesses from a place of alignment, a while ago I trademarked the tagline "Business Success from the Inside Out," and I hadn't gotten around to marketing that or promoting that or updating everything. So if you see some changes, that's all it is. It's just something that I've had for a little while and I just never got around to doing. So, and it feels really aligned for me to start sharing that tagline now. So also, I'm just very aware as I'm recording that there's some crows and magpies behind me. I work in a little office this morning, it's not a little office, my little building opposite the beach. And so we always have seagulls and crows and magpies and everything around here. So if you hear some beautiful little birds in the background, that's what they are. So, okay, today's episode is going to be talking about something that is, I'm sure, going to trigger a reaction in all of us. When you hear this very word, you're going to have a response. But today we're going to talk about money. That's right, money. Now, if I had a fistful of money and I was just fanning myself with it right now, what would you think? Would you be annoyed by that? Would you be frustrated? Would you be irritated? Would you be excited? Would you be happy for me? Would you want to know how you can do it too? The thing is that we all have a money story, and money itself is neutral, okay? It doesn't have any power, it doesn't have any value, nothing other than the meaning that we attribute to it. The reason that I'm talking about money today is because earlier this week, when I did my webinar, so the webinars run every fortnight, the one that was running this week was all about how to make your first 100,000 in private practice as a therapist, as an allied health practitioner, or as a coach. And so today it's had the most registrations than any of my other webinars. So it was really exciting. And following on from that, I've received a bucket load of emails, which is really unusual. Usually I will get 3 or 4 emails after a webinar from people having more questions or wanting more information. But yesterday I had maybe 11, and this morning I've got into work and checked my emails again, and there's probably another 11 in there. So I thought it might be worthwhile addressing one of the more common things that's been coming up, and that is people are wanting to know, how do I set my session fee? What did you base it on, Brooklyn? How did you arrive at your session fee? How should I arrive at mine? So the thing is that I provided a formula for exactly that in the webinar. And if you didn't register for it, don't panic. I'll put a link to it and you can absolutely grab the replay, and you can have a pen and paper with you and learn the steps that I taught everybody. But there's also, I guess, some other ideas around how to set a session fee. And so what I did was I have a Facebook group. The Facebook group is called Business Success from the Inside Out with Dr. Brooklyn Storme, and it's a public group. Anybody's welcome to have a look at what's in there and contribute to the posts. But I put a poll in there, and it just asked allied health practitioners, therapists and coaches how they set their fees. And I put a bunch of options in there, and let me just count them. We've got 6 and 3 is 9, and 4 is 13, and 3 is 16, and 3 is 19. So we've had 19 responses, and of those 19 responses, 9 people wrote that they set their fees by trusting their gut. They do it on gut instinct. Now, this might surprise you, but it kind of doesn't, because I know that my group is all about how do I run a business in a way that feels really good and in a way that's aligned. And I help people use spiritual practices like gratitude and connecting with their higher purpose and things like that. So it's kind of a surprise that nearly half of the respondents are setting fees on gut intuition, but kind of not. I think, though, if you're setting your fees solely on gut, we've got a problem, because you can be at risk of not being able to generate the turnover that you need in order for the business to maintain its viability. So if you're one of those people, I think it might be time for a rethink about how to set your fees. And I would be very interested in hearing whether or not your business is profitable or whether or not there's some wiggle room for improvement. So that was 9 of 19 respondents. The next most common one was 4 people who responded to this. The poll option was, I look at my client demographic and I decide from there. Now, I get that, but I think that does not need to be your dominant way of determining your fee, because we know that in any demographic, that demographic, if you go back to statistics, I'm sorry, this is going to be a very painful memory for some of you, but I happen to really enjoy statistics. But if you remember just even the bell-shaped curve, and you have the mean, and you've got 3 standard deviations above, 3 standard deviations below, and then you have your outliers. That is a visual reminder for you that your demographic isn't going to dictate what your fee is. You can operate in any one of those standard deviations. You do not have to operate at the mean, okay? So if your average session fee in your location, in your suburb, is $100, you don't need to match that and say, well, I'm going to do $100. In fact, I think you should always do 2 or 3 standard deviations above the mean. I think you absolutely always want to be pushing that limit. You want to be approaching one of the outliers. And the reason for that is because in general marketing terms, there's a higher perceived value when you have a higher fee. And when there's a higher perceived value, and you have the higher fee, you attract clients that are different to the clients who are paying $100 and they're the average client. So if you want to be working with clients who are more invested, who are more engaged, who are going to show up, who are going to do the work, then absolutely consider pitching your fees at higher standard deviations above the mean. Okay, the next one down, 3 people responded that this was their dominant approach, and the approach was, I look at what other people are charging first, and then I go from there. Now, this is, I think, also fraught with danger, because when you have to compare apples with apples, there's no point comparing, if you're a solo practitioner in private practice, there's no point comparing your fee with the person down the road who's got a group therapy practice, or the next one over there, or the next one over there. And I'll tell you why. Because there's a formula for setting your fees, okay? And there's a whole lot of things that need to be taken into consideration. You need to look at a collection of variables, a collection of independent variables that are going to affect the dependent variable, which is your fee. Independent variables can include things like your qualifications, okay? Different qualifications can absolutely attract different fees. You want to look at your experience, okay? You're not going to charge out somebody with 20 years experience at the same rate that you're charging out somebody with 1 year of experience if you're a business owner and you've got a team. Even yourself, if you're a coach, you are not going to be charging what Tony Robbins charges if you've just started and you don't have any proof of value, if you don't have any proof of viability, if you don't have any social proofing behind you either, all of those things. Also, your overheads from business to business are very different, and your overheads absolutely need to be considered. All that, your holidays, your leave, how much you want to invest in your professional development, all of these independent variables need to be considered when you are setting your session fee. Somebody else said, she was going to let me know in the comments, pardon me, and she said she takes into consideration the time that she spends with her clients plus all the behind the scenes work and her targeted audience, which is great. And somebody else, Daniel Jarvis, said that he uses cost analysis and margin and compares it with the market for compromised position. So again, I think that that's probably a pretty comprehensive approach for things. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is understanding what you want to take home. And the reason for that is because part of the reason that we start our business, not the only reason, but part of the reason we start our business is because we want more freedom. We don't want the 9 to 5. We don't want the 90-minute commute in the morning to somebody else's business and the 90-minute commute home in peak hour traffic and be doing that 5 days a week for X amount of dollars. We don't want that. What we want is we want to work less hours, make the same money as if we were working a 40-hour week, but only perhaps work, a little bit less even, and have more time to spend with our family. And a lot of the demographic, though, I was looking at a statistic this morning about the number of women versus men in helping professions. And it was an Australian statistic, and it said that in the helping professions, it's nearly 73% women. And so I'm going to make a sweeping generalisation here, which I'm not included in, but anyway, a sweeping generalisation that a lot of women probably have children or probably have some type of caring responsibility or are looking to have children or something like that. And you need to be able to take into consideration as well when you're setting your fee, being available for your family, having that flexibility for them, and as women taking into consideration your superannuation, because number one, when you're a woman, sometimes you forget to look after your superannuation when you only work for yourself. It's the law in Australia when you work for somebody else as an employee that person's contributing part of your wage to your superannuation. So you never have to worry about it. But when you start working as an entrepreneur and you have a solo practice, or you're a contractor, or you're a coach or something like that, there's nobody there that's giving you a pay slip that shows you the breakdown of how much you spent on your tax and how much you invested into your superannuation or anything like that. What happens is you look at the bank balance and then you think, yikes, I've got to pay the rent next week. How am I going to do it? And it's this poor approach to managing money that unfortunately gets a bunch of, well, not just women, but I'm speaking to women because you're my demographic audience. my concern is that as women, when you're working for yourself, number one, you have to be on top of your finances, because the reality is, over 50% of marriages end in divorce. You want to be able to look after yourself financially. And second, you have to take responsibility. Nobody's going to come and bail you out. It's your responsibility to look after your money. So when you're setting your session fees, you absolutely want to add 25% to whatever it is you're thinking of charging, because as women, we tend to undervalue ourselves and we undercharge. We have this mindset that, maybe it's not fair, maybe people can't afford us, maybe we're mean and horrible if we charge that much, maybe we're not worthy of the money. So naturally, often we have a tendency to undercharge, okay? We might say, if other people are charging 180, I'm only going to charge 150 because I'm not as good as that person over there. It's crazy what we do to ourselves. And then what happens is that money comes in and then it goes out on bills, but we don't count our superannuation as a bill. And if we do, we make it lowest on the priority because we associate it as being self-serving. We think it's something for ourselves, and so that's mean and we should put everybody else first. And I get how that happens, but you have to start. It's never too late to start contributing to your superannuation. Every little bit is going to compound. And honestly, you don't want to be working in your 70s, okay? And you don't want to be working in your 80s unless you really love it, and you do, which is another story. But you don't want to be doing it because you can't afford your retirement. So start now. And as I said, your superannuation is a non-negotiable. If in your bank account, when the money comes in, if you set aside, 30% of that for your expenses, well, part of that 30% absolutely has to go into your superannuation. Plus, if you're in Australia, I don't know about my listeners in Canada, France, and America and the UK. I don't know what your rules are, but it's a tax deduction here. So there's absolutely no reason for you to do it. Don't be scared. You have to look after yourself. So include that when you're thinking about setting your session fees. The other thing, and it's probably a whole other podcast, is we tend to be really bad at things like creating policies around cancellations and no-shows. And, just quickly, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. I think when you bring your unhelpful money mindset into your business, you're doing yourself a disservice. You know my story. I struggled with my money mindset for a long time, and it nearly ruined me financially. I had this feeling that it was mean to charge cancellation fees for people not showing up. I was horrible. I was a bee for doing that. And then I started to get that feedback from clients when I did, so because I was so wishy-washy about it. Now I have very, very firm policies in place around my cancellations and my no-shows. It's 48 hours, it's full fee. They agree to the terms when they commence with the business. They're reminded of it 3 days ahead of their appointments by SMS. They get 2 emails leading up to the 48 hours, reminding them that they've got options to reschedule now or cancel now, So when it does come time, and I keep all their credit card information on file as part of the terms of service with me. And so then when they do fail to attend, or when they do ring up and cancel, they're understanding of it. And I haven't had any pushback, but I could not have done this, 5 years ago or 10 years ago, because my mindset was very, very different. I was kind of aligned with, very social justice type thing. I didn't grow up with money. My very first meaningful employment was I was working with the Brotherhood of St. Lawrence for very little money, but it was very rewarding work. But I was working with people who couldn't afford things all the time. This was my way of giving back and contributing. So then I had it drummed into me for years there as a psychologist working that it's mean and it's horrible, and isn't that terrible that psychologists charge fees? So I brought all that into my business, and I want you to understand that this isn't going to help you. And if you're struggling with your money mindset, the easiest way to get the money sorted out with the least amount of pain before you work on your money mindset is to hire somebody to do your books for you, to chase up the debt for you, to process those no-shows and cancellation fees for you, and just remove you from the equation. One of the things I struggled with was before I had admin, and I don't have physical admin, I have remote virtual admin that take care of everything, but sometimes clients would come in and I would have to face-to-face have the discussion with them about money, and it was really not nice for them, it was not nice for me, it affects the therapeutic relationship. And I think if you're not ready to do the work on yourself and process your money mindset, get somebody else to manage the money for you. And from time to time, you're going to get some pushback from clients around certain things to do with the money. It's part of business. And if you're not comfortable with that, again, that's something you need to work on. But people will sometimes try and escalate their queries, and they'll want to bypass whoever's looking after them for you and come to you and say, hey, I don't want to pay this, or why is it this fee, or da-da-da-da-da. In which case, you've got an option. You can either handle it as a director and the owner of your business, or you can say to that person, for these reasons, in the interest of preserving the therapeutic relationship, we have a policy here that all money matters are dealt with by our finance department. Your finance department can be the person that's looking after your books. It can be your accountant. It can be a team of people you've got helping you. It doesn't matter who it is, but remove yourself from the equation, and that will take a lot of the emotional difficulty that you can experience having money conversations with clients. But ultimately, you want to work on your money mindset. It's very hard working for yourself in a helping profession when you're working with clients who are coming to you, sharing their deepest, innermost thoughts that they haven't shared with anybody else. And then at the end, you've got to go, oh, hey, by the way, you still owe me money. Don't do it. Set things up correctly from the outset. If you want to know how to set your session fee so that you can start, if you're just new to practice, if you're a new grad, or maybe you've been in practice for a while and you haven't hit your 100K yet, I want to teach you how to do it. It doesn't cost you anything. You can watch the webinar, and if you registered for it, you'll get you would have got the replay link. If you haven't registered for it, you will have to pay for it. It's $47, and I'll put the link in there. But worth it to get your money sorted out, I think. Plus, it's a tax deduction. Plus, you get a certificate of attendance if you want to count that webinar, that hour-long webinar, towards your continuing professional development as part of keeping your registration or license for practicing. So that is that. Now, I'm super excited because on Wednesday, this year, something else that's new for us is we have guest experts coming onto the show on Wednesdays. And so on Wednesday, we have the amazing Emma Dunwoody. Now, Emma Dunwoody is a consultant. She is also a master coach for corporations. And what she does is she works with people, leaders, around a framework of something called human design. So human design takes into account, and don't quote me on this, she's the expert, I'm not, but it's around looking at your place of birth, the time of birth, and I think there's one other thing, and that creates a profile of your genetic design. And from that genetic design, she's able, or human design specialists are able to then map out, in a way, kind of your life in terms of how you approach things, what your strengths are, what your capacities are, where you thrive, where your zone of genius is, and all that sort of stuff. So it's a really interesting conversation, and I'm really looking forward to you getting to meet her as well. Also, the other thing is, me, I have not been a big LinkedIn fan, and I had no intention really of getting involved in LinkedIn, but as I've been doing these guest expert interviews for the podcast, it's come up, everybody's saying, oh, you on LinkedIn, and can I connect with you on LinkedIn? So I've sort of started dabbling a little bit, and from time to time, I think it's like once or twice a week, I'll quickly open up LinkedIn and I'll share some information about one of the guests' podcasts. And then I click on my messages and I see what's going on. And I don't know, I'm still trying to find my feet with LinkedIn. Maybe I'm going to be a convert, I don't know. But I have to say, this week I was really surprised because 2 people reached out to me and they didn't want anything. They just wanted to, I guess, connect, which was awesome. But one of them, the short version, I'll just give you the short version, but the short version is one of them has invited me to be a guest at a conference that he's running, or it's not really a conference, it's like a morning tea type thing for people in private practice. So I'm really looking forward to going to that because that's where, my audience is, and I want to connect with people there. And I'm really, really looking forward. Since I found this out, I've now heard that some of you guys that listen to the podcast will also be there. So I'm really excited to see people face to face and see who's listening and what you think and how I can improve. And the other thing was, somebody else has offered to, he's got this huge following and he's really liking, my concept of aligning the business and how you can connect your business policies and procedures, like recruiting your team and stuff like that, to your higher purpose and to your brand vision and values. And he's really seen it as such it's an innovative space for me to be in. And he's asked me if he wants me to make some introductions. And that just meant a lot to me because I guess old me would have thought somebody like this person that I'm thinking about would never even look at me, because I never used to think that I was, I had like low self-worth. I was thinking, oh, nobody like that would ever talk to someone like me. So it's been really, 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 really such a joy to be able to have conversations that are, meaningful with people on LinkedIn. So if you're on LinkedIn, let's connect, because I'm open to expanding my network there and looking at how I can use LinkedIn more effectively for connecting with people. The other thing that I'm making a focus this year is I really want to look more deeply into Google, and I'm becoming quite obsessed with Google Analytics. So you're probably going to be subjected to a podcast over the next month or so around Google and how you can use Google to boost your profile for your private practice or for your therapy or coaching business, how you can use Google Analytics to track what's happening on your website, how you can use Google tags, all this sort of stuff to boost your visibility and reduce your reliance on social media. So it's something I'm looking into. It's really interesting, and I will be sharing that information on a future episode. So if you're open and interested in looking at how you can create and build a meaningful audience offline in terms of social media, stay tuned. So thank you so much. Check out the links, heaps of information in there, and enjoy the weekend. Have a beautiful weekend, guys, and I will talk to you later. Bye. Thank you so much for listening today. I really hope that you enjoyed it and got a lot of value from it. Help me help others by sharing this podcast. And if you feel called to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, remember to let me know so that I can send you a very special thank you gift. Now go and build your dream business, and I will see you next time. Bye.